This is so rad to be here with you.
Yeah, man.
Especially since I just found out you're leaving tomorrow.
Yeah.
On like a whirlwind 2-week adventure that you've had since you've been back.
Yeah.
Dude, so let's I can't like really impress upon enough fucking whenever I talk to people, I'm just like, dude, I went to school with this kid in middle school. And you know what? I always tell the same story. Because you always tell how you know people, especially when they're doing cool shit like you are. Yeah. I'm like, this is my guy. I don't think people realize. In 9th grade, we used to meet every day after first hour, and you let me cheat off of your math homework. I'm like, that's my dude. And I go,
yeah, that's funny. And
I go,
I forgot about that. It's really funny. That's true.
It is. And I go, he's one of the best drum players in the world. I go, one and two. Like, he's up there. Like, how do you rank? I'm like, in my mind, you're the best fucking trumpet player in the world, right?
It's music, man. It's hard to say.
Exactly. So I'm just like, so he's one of the best trumpet players in the world. Like, I try to impress that upon people. I'm like, but that's my boy from back in the day. And that's so crazy. But, dude, you've been on a whirlwind adventure, right? So you're not stateside often.
No.
So when people want to see you, or when you're back, I imagine it's like, dude, let me see Hermon,
yeah,
right?
Man, it's insane.
Yeah, so you've been New York, you played?
Yeah, I was in New York for a day, and then Chicago for 3, LA for 2, and then, here.
And then here we are in KC.
Yeah.
But you've been here for a week.
Here for a week. I mean, like last night I was in Omaha. I played.
Oh, were you in Omaha?
Yeah, and I was also in Topeka at some point. So it's still kind of And then when I'm here, it's just like saying, man, it's crazy.
Go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Non-stop.
dude. It's a whirlwind adventure. I'm sure, man. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Is it a way different pace in the States compared to like Paris?
Yeah, I mean, it all kind of, obviously it all kind of depends on where exactly you are.
Yeah,
like
everybody's different.
For instance, like if you were to generalize though, like America versus Europe in terms of pace, America's much faster pace.
Is it?
Right. With New York being the extreme version of that, it's a big city, right?
Right.
But then you got Europe, your biggest cities are like Paris and London. They're going to be the most fast-paced in Europe, but they're still not like comparatively to like a New York.
Like a New York or even Chicago, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, Paris. I mean, people hang out for hours on a terrace.
Yeah.
Just like having a coffee and then drinking a wine with a friend. Like in New York, it's like if you want to meet someone, it's like okay, I can meet at 2:15 and then I have to, I gotta go at 3. Actually, 2:55. You know what I mean? It's like that's how it is.
It's like listen, man, to the T.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to work in a call center, and I talked to a lot of people from the Northeast, and they are very direct and just like, let's get to it, dude.
Yep.
Cut the shit.
Yeah, it's true, man.
Yeah. I move a lot slower than that.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, the Midwest is definitely a slower pace. But then in Europe, it's like even slower. And if you go to like the places that are not the big cities, it's like relaxed.
Right. I was either listening to something or maybe I was reading it. I'm not sure, but it was saying that it was talking about it was along the lines of like health and how there's not really a ton of obesity in France. Yeah. And how like just their eating habits there are way different, like usually smaller portions. Mm-hmm. I believe they usually have their biggest meal around like lunch. Is that right? Is that usually the biggest meal? And then it's usually kind of like a smaller late dinner with friends, a little more social?
It can be that way. It depends. One thing that's for sure is like, which is kind of the opposite of the American idea, is that breakfast is really small.
Okay.
Like it's called petit déjeuner, which means small lunch.
Yeah. Okay.
Technically, and it's like a croissant or like toast with jam, and that's it. You might have like a little egg. I mean, that's it. It's not really a thing, And then lunch, it just depends on the people's like kind of like like what their lifestyle is in terms of work and stuff like that. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But even lunch, if lunch is bigger than dinner, it's still not like.
It's not like super filling.
Yeah. And then this if you just talk about in general, like this less processed food and
right,
and just better quality ingredients on like a base level.
Is it more local?
Yeah. It's more like, it hasn't been like kind of like I mean, like this America's food system is a bit bastardized and kind of and like fucked up, really.
For a number of reasons too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It kind of seems like we're moving back towards more local, kind of more to nature, just as a human society.
Yeah.
But who knows, dude? Yeah, dude. So I had a fucking train of thought.
Okay.
And I just fucking lost it.
Oh no.
Oh, what was it?
Is it about the food?
Oh, I know what I was gonna say. Dude, one of the best ways to, I feel like, experience culture, I think one of the best things about traveling is really diving into like the cuisine of these different places, dude. And you've got to do quite a bit of that, just jumping around Europe. And have you ventured into Asia as well, right? And
just Japan a couple of times.
Yeah. Like, what's like really stuck out to you as far as like, dude, like that was amazing.
In terms of food, directly.
Yeah,
man. Actually, I mentioned Japan just now, but Japan is probably my favorite country for food.
Has it?
It's insane. And you know, in general, this is what I've also learned. And I mean, it's kind of an obvious thing, but it's like, you know, like Japanese food at a Japanese restaurant in the States is not going to be as good as Japanese food in Japan. Obviously, but it's like obvious. You know, like you're there, and the you know, the ingredients are better. The technique, the cooking is better.
Right.
Their sourcing is better. Like, and Japan. I mean, I could eat that food in Japan for the rest of my life and I'd be happy.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Dude, so much tradition and culture is passed down through food.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best things, just to like connect with people over a meal.
Absolutely. And they really appreciate when you care about their food too. You know? Because a lot of people, I found a lot of cultures take pride in their food. You know? And you know, Italy, same. If it's not Japan for me, it's Italy.
Okay.
You know.
But people, I feel like around here at least, people have an idea of what's like really eaten over there, and it's completely different. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not all of this refined processed carbohydrate. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, do they even really have spaghetti? Let's just say the traditional like spaghetti and meatballs, where everybody kind of goes to. Yeah. Like when you're stereotyping. That's not like a huge meal over there.
Not meatballs. Spaghetti, but not spaghetti and meatballs. That's not it. I mean,
that's like the bastardization.
It is. Yeah, it is. I mean, the thing about, you have like, you know, like for instance, one dish is spaghetti aglio e olio, which is just aglio is garlic, and olio is olive oil.
Olive oil. Yep.
So it's just literally it's
garlic oil.
With a little pepper in it. I mean, it's not, you can't find that here. Of course you can find, but this is like it's normal and there, and it's just like
people are afraid of oil. It's really weird.
They're all about it in Italy.
Yeah, well, and it's
and they have good olive oil there. You know?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I get my. It's kind of like I don't know how I feel about it, because I do most of my shopping at Costco. Yep. And because I mostly buy organic, and I try to get everything like glass, and it always comes usually from Italy or
maybe Greece.
Greece, yep. Greece or Italy is usually where they have their oils from.
Yeah, I mean the oil in that area, in those areas, are just amazing.
It's probably way better like at the source though.
Yeah, well, you have more like options, and you can get more specific, and and it's even in Paris, you know, I have more access to those. Right. And it's fun. It's so. I mean, I don't know. I 10 years ago I wouldn't have been like, oh man, I'm gonna like be geeking out about olive oil tastes, you know. But it's
dude. There's a scale. I didn't know there was like a scale to grade oils, right? I think it's like a 5-point scale or something, like based off of. The more it makes you cough, apparently, it's like a better. Let's look that up, Alan. Look that up. Google that.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm just you know, for me, that just like producers and tasting, I'm like, oh wow, that's like a sweeter olive oil, or that's like a tangier, or like a I don't know anything about like the actual like, you know, like
a grading of
it.
Yeah, we grade everything.
That's true. That's true.
We're always stacking things up. What's this? What's that? We got to put it on a number system.
Yeah, man.
It is interesting how we do that. Fuck, dude. So you've been playing in a lot of cafes, right? Or do you play in what do you prefer to play? And let me ask you that, because you're playing all over the place, really. I
Yeah.
notice you do like a lot of really cool intimate sets.
Yeah.
Like, what do you prefer whenever you're performing?
Man, I kind of do everything, and it's like to me it's almost the same question as like what's your favorite kind of music to play? Because you get something different from every one of
You
them.
like to mix it up?
I like to mix it up. Like in Paris, I play pretty regularly at a place on Saturdays called La Fontaine de Belleville.
Okay.
I've had a lot of people come through there, coming through town, coming to the concert. It's been a pretty successful thing over there. But of course, I'm also playing proper jazz clubs that are clubs,
Yeah.
and I'm playing like rock venues, depending on what kind of music I'm playing. I'm playing
Yeah.
theaters, festivals.
Because you do a lot of collabs, don't you?
A lot of collaboration. People ask me to play with their projects quite a bit.
Yeah. Trying to
And,
bring your sound.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they
Yeah.
want what I have to offer, not just because I play the trumpet, because of like what I'm playing, like how I'm playing it.
Yeah. That's the thing. And that's the beauty of art, right? Because it's all our own, like, when you're doing that. And so I've talked about this a million times. People are probably tired of it. Like, I realized at a certain point that what I really enjoy is being in this flow state where you're not thinking, you're just in the present, you're doing, and your creativity is at its best in that moment. And everything is just like, it's almost like there's something working through you, and you're just the conduit for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only imagine it's the same thing for like when you're just really deep in a set, or you're playing a certain like you're playing something and like you're just into it.
It's true, man. I mean, it's exactly that, because at least, especially in jazz music particularly, a big part of jazz music is improvisation, right?
Yeah.
So that's literally being in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and what we work for is to be in the moment and have that flow, and that's like magic,
Right.
You're just in it, and it takes a lot of work and practice to get to the point where you can do that, because in general, because I'm assuming that there's gonna be a mix of people like listening who know nothing or know something about jazz. In general, I like to make the comparison of improvisation in jazz to improvisation in speech, like what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like, we're not just saying random things to each other, right? We're like talking about a subject,
Right.
and we're constructing our phrases in a certain way, and we're responding to each other. Da, 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 da. I have no idea what you're gonna say next.
Right.
But you might kind of know where I'm going, or you know what I mean. There's
It's like
things.
we have this flow and this yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
There's this thing about a conversation to where in the beginning it can be kind of choppy, but then you reach this this groove, and everything's just
Absolutely.
Just flowing.
And like, the only way we can do that is because we've been speaking English since we were born.
Right.
We have some rapport. We kind of we know each other. We have long rapport, actually.
Yeah.
There's other things. So it's kind of the same thing in the musical setting as well. It's like you have to kind of put in the time on the instrument to be able to play it with fluidity and understand. You have to understand harmony. So you're not just playing random stuff.
Right.
It's not improvisation is not random. That's my point too. It's like,
there's organization in the chaos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like a perceived chaos.
Yep.
Whenever it's one of those things to where maybe when it's your first exposure, you're just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And then you start to develop this ear and this understanding, and you're just like, oh, now you can start piecing together all these different areas, and it's like, now it makes this beautiful picture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just put together the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The brain really is an interesting thing. So you've been, walk me through, and also the listeners, like, your progression through, like, the art of trumpet, right? Because like we were talking about a little bit before, like, that isn't a very, that's not a profession or a way of living that people get to hear about, right? Like, especially us growing up in the Midwest, it was always, what's your ACT score? Like, where do you want to be when you grow up? Like, what career are you really going after? What school are you going to? Like, you need to take these steps to go be an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor, or, you know what I mean? Or a physical therapist, or whatever the case may be. But it's always these quote unquote kind of like glamorous things, if you will, or maybe not even glamorous, because some of them aren't glamorous, but let's just say socially acceptable things. But nobody tells you, like, hey man, you love playing music, you can make a living doing that. You have to eat shit for a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you can do that. Or
Yep.
you want to produce art, you can produce art. You want to go
Yep.
do movie makeup, you can be a movie makeup artist.
Yep.
Like, you can really pursue your passion and make it happen.
Totally.
Right? So you kind of went through this progression. Like, how did that work for you?
Well, it's a good question. It's funny too because on top of the kind of like pressure of coming from the Midwest, like my background is Eritrean, so like, my parents were refugees, and
Oh,
a lot of Eritreans, actually a lot of immigrants, parents usually are like, okay, we made it here. You got to be a doctor.
yeah.
You got to be a scientist or whatever,
So there's that
lawyer.
family pressure.
So there's also that, right? So I think it's for me, it was even more like I was even more of like a black sheep in the sense, kind of like bucking the trend. Um, and so basically, I think I'm coming to learn more and more about myself, and I'm always thinking against the grain in a sense. I'm always trying to like say, like, okay, this is what's going on, but can it be a different way? Is there something else?
Yeah.
So I'm realizing I've always kind of been like that, and then I for me it's like if I like something, I'm gonna do it and figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't care if this is what the social norm is, or this is what I'm supposed to do. So, like I did really well in school. I found school pretty easy. So my parents got excited. Like, okay, he's doing this thing. No, I did music.
Yeah, you guys, you crushed school. Like, it was from the typical kind of lens of things.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, Herman's gonna go to college and probably be like a doctor or a lawyer, or because what'd you graduate with, like a 4.0 in high school, or
something
some
beyond that.
something beyond, like, because you took AP courses, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So obviously, like, the intellect is there, right? But you chose instead of an analytical route, like, you chose a very creative route.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I bet they didn't see that whenever they bought you that trumpet the first
They
time.
definitely did not. It was funny because my dad, when he bought it, he was like, "You got to practice." I was like, "All right, I'll practice." And then I don't think he realized what that turned into. It was like I fell in love with it. After a year, I was just like, that's all I was doing. I was like practicing and practicing. And then in high school, I was gigging quite a bit. I was like playing around mid Missouri every weekend, like Columbia.
I don't think people knew the hustle you did.
Yeah, I was literally every weekend, and like, I had friends, like my friend's family band I played with quite a bit, the Van Hooses.
Yeah. I remember you guys did that ninth grade fucking talent show.
The talent show, yeah. People were talking about talent
People
show.
talk about it still to this day, dude, in our grade. Still to this, it's like, you guys remember when they did that? They fucking, it gets even cooler and cooler as the time goes.
That's so funny.
But that is cool, right? Because high school is this very unnatural ecosystem.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, this grade against that grade, and as you get older, then you get to shit on the younger people, and it's like, that's not cool. Like, you should really be friends with everybody.
Yeah.
But then there's so many kids who maybe they don't fit in, or they feel alone, or they go against the grain, and that is really, other kids will let you know, like, hey, dude, you're doing something different, and it's usually not accepted well in that community. But then you get out of this bullshit ecosystem, and you get into the real world, and then you start finding people like you.
Yeah.
And then you start to really learn who you are, and you start to like grow into yourself as the real person that you are, and then you blossom. You know what I mean? Like, you found this community, you found who you are, and now you can start pursuing this path. And that's really it seems like when you're young like that, and you're in that weird thing that's like this weird unnatural ecosystem, like, that really gets suppressed.
Yeah.
And it's not encouraged to do weird things or be yourself.
It's true, man. It's really unfortunate, I mean, I didn't fall under the pressure.
No, you didn't. But it sticks out, I guess. My real point with that was, like, when you do stuff like that, people remember it. It sticks out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and like, later on in life, they're like, oh, dude. Then people accept it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, man.
Yeah, and same with the fam, right? Like,
I always
even when I went to conservatory after school and I went to Kansas City, it was still kind of like, well, yeah, okay, you're gonna double major, right? Or like, like, no.
Like, no, I'm doing jazz.
And I was like, man, I'm doing this. Like, I'm gigging in Kansas City, And then a few years later, I'm like,
a lot of good blues here.
Yeah, blues and jazz.
Yeah, blues and jazz.
And I mean, the history for jazz here is particularly really important, actually. But And then, I mean, it was like before I graduated already, I was touring the U.S. quite a bit. I had been I'd been to Europe a couple times. So by then it was like, okay, we get it.
Right.
This is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the path of anybody who wants to really build anything outside of the traditional model. People will watch you, kind of waiting for you to fail, because then they can say, "Oh, I was right. I told you so."
Yeah.
And then like they see like, "Oh shit! Like you're not giving up. You're really doing this. All right, cool, dude." Then some people start showing some support,
Yep.
but then there's this tipping point to where it's like you've gained this momentum. You've like failed. You've learned.
Yep.
Like you've had the hard lessons, and now you're fucking doing it. And then everybody's like, "I knew it."
Yeah. I had his back.
Yeah. Dude, I wish I could have said, like, I wish I would have, like, I think about it. I didn't know what you went to school. Because, like, once we went from high school, like, you just go off into the world and people, I didn't know that you were studying. I assumed that you were, like, most people, like, oh, he's probably studying something, be like an architect or something. And then you start seeing, I'm just like, oh, fuck, dude, like, Hermon's here and Hermon's there. I'm like, dude, that's fucking dope, dude. Like, like that's so rad. Like, I hope he fucking does it. And then 5 years later or however long it's like, now you're deep in it.
I'm deep in it.
You're like an OG. Like you're fucking a pillar in that community.
Yeah, and it's interesting to go back to something you said earlier. You said most people don't understand this lifestyle, the musician lifestyle, and so to kind of explain it in a sense, as a music. I mean, the thing about it is so open ended in terms of how you can make the music business work for you.
Yeah.
Right. There's like there's 100 different ways. Obviously education. You can teach education. You can teach schools. You can teach at the college level, high school level. You can just teach lessons, and you can do master classes, clinics around the world, around the U.S. There's that whole thing, right? You can mix that up with doing performances. You can produce music. You can. There's so many different ways. You can make money through publishing music,
Yeah.
Or getting your music on a movie. You can do movie scoring. You can do
movie exact. So that's like nobody ever thinks about that.
Yeah,
movie
like
scoring.
when you watch a movie, someone made the music.
Yeah, or TV
yeah. There's music everywhere in our lives,
Yeah.
So there's, and of course there's performing. So, and then the performing thing is like, well, that's a whole other thing. Like what's interesting about it is that it's such a different lifestyle than people know, because they're used to the 9 to 5, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
This is the way it is.
That's what you're supposed to do. Get a 401k.
Yeah.
Work towards your retirement.
Yeah. I mean, like, what do you do?
Yeah. What do you do all day? Like, how do you make money? How do you live?
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So you said something, and it sparked a thought. Damn it, Herman.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm talking too fast.
No, dude, those are great. I love what you're saying, dude. It just, I don't know what I was saying. What were you saying? Maybe.
I was talking about, like
the art. Oh, I know. I was gonna ask you. So 2 years ago, you released your studio album.
Yeah.
Bleu.
Yep.
Am I saying that correct?
Bleu.
Bleu. Yeah. Bleu.
Yeah.
Bleu.
Bleu in French.
Yeah.
Bleu.
EU. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, how was that experience? Because you do a lot of live performances.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have the one album now. Do you prefer the live over doing the studio work, or like how was that process? And like
I mean, it's kind of like not an either or thing,
Oh yeah.
But
sometimes you like gravitate towards more one thing than the other. Not to say the other thing's bad.
No, I mean, like, the thing is, studio recording is almost. I mean, you have to do it. It's a kind of usually studio recording is like a kind of an unnatural thing. You're kind of making music in a different way than you would if you were just playing it live.
Right. But so it's a different process.
It's definitely a different process.
Right.
A different feeling when you play.
So a better question would be like, which process feels better for you?
I mean, I live to play music live for people. That's for me. That's the point.
That's where it's at.
And the point of me doing a studio recording, one is to like document my art and make something creative. It's like, it's like a book or a painting. It's like something that's
right. Right.
That'll live forever.
Yeah.
Beyond me. But for me, the reason I got into this in general was just because I love playing music and having people feel something.
Yeah. There's like a direct connection.
Yeah, and I hope my recording can make people feel something. And I'm sure, I mean, that's the whole point.
Right.
But it's different when you're there and the connection is there directly,
Yeah.
you know?
Dude, there's something so special about live music, whether, especially in an intimate setting is nice. I feel like sometimes there's like a point of return, like when you get too big, it can almost be, but sometimes it just depends on the music and who's doing it. But there's just something about being in the same space, sharing the same energy, and just like, especially like you're talking about you with improv, right?
Yep.
You're getting something so unique and so original, and like this is it. This is the moment, and like if you can appreciate that and be present and in the moment, like there's nothing. You just create an experience for a lifetime.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, that's powerful.
It is powerful.
Yeah,
man.
but I mean, your album did amazing, right?
Yeah.
Debuted at #1 in the jazz charts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fucking. Do you think you're going to do maybe like a regular schedule of releases of like? Some people put out like an album like every 2 or 3 years, or something like so. It's not rushed, but
totally. I mean, the thing is like, so I put that album out. Before that, I had a. We still kind of we have the group. We haven't disbanded or anything. We have a group called Diverse.
Yep.
And with that group, we put out 2 records. But since then, I've kind of moved on. Like I want to focus on like my thing. And right now, I have 3/4 projects in the
can. Too. 4 albums. You said you were working with Diverse.
Yeah, so I got two with Diverse. Then got my the solo project, my Bleu. And then I've got like 4 things under the like that are basically made. Just need to be kind of like mixed and figure out what labels to kind of put them out on, and the different things. So like they're like. A couple of them are duo collaborations. One of them is an electronic music project, and
that's
with a producer in Europe. And then one is like an EP that I recorded with it's like a jazz kind of throwback album, but all done analog, like recorded to tape, so it has that like the warm tape feeling.
Yeah, you get such a different sound depending if it's analog or it's digital.
Yes, exactly.
Vinyl's making a way back, dude.
Exactly, and that thing would be released for sure on vinyl. And I got all these things kind of working, and then at some point I'm gonna work to do like my next like full length Hermon Mehari thing.
Yeah, but there's no like timeline for that or anything.
Not really, but like kind of the way I see it in terms of like the business sense, like these projects kind of like will be in the meanwhile, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it gives me time, and it will my fans will be happy. And that's something.
That's the way to do it, right? You have quite a few different things kind of developing simultaneously, which will be released at different times. Right?
Yep, exactly.
So you're never really getting burnt out on anything. You're staying very creative.
Totally.
You're working totally different things, and you're still producing content and creating value.
Exactly.
Like, that's where it's at, for real. So are you technically, like, are you independent? Or I know you released your last album, like, you released it through a record label. So are you, like, signed to a label? Or how does that work for you?
I am independent right now.
Okay.
And even that was done through a label, but in an independent way. You know what I mean? So like, and none of these labels that I'm going to work with, for instance, well, I shouldn't say none of them, but like, they're going to be one-offs at least.
Yeah.
You know, maybe like one of them could be something someone I continue working with. But I mean, at some point I might sign to a bigger label and do. It just depends, you know.
Yeah.
Like what makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense.
Right.
The amount of money they take and they want to own like your masters. They want. It's just like this like certain.
They'll restrict your creativity.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what you should do?
Yeah. Yeah.
How many times you hear that? Did people ever tell you what you should be doing?
I mean, I stay away from those.
Oh man, there's a lot of them. They all want to give you advice.
Yeah.
But they can't see your vision. It's like it's not for them.
That's it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So I kind of got a little off track. So with what kind of was your development with? Because I mean, you started very young. You know, traditional kind of band playing, right? And I was reading that, again, nobody knows this, but like you were taking like improv classes over the summers during school. Yeah. And like developing your stuff.
I don't know if you remember those like enrichment classes they had at the summer school or whatever we had at middle school.
Yeah.
They had all kinds of classes, included a jazz improvisation class.
See, Like,
Yeah.
you took advantage of that.
Yeah, I
Like,
did.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
For me, my mindset was, oh, it's summertime. Forget that.
Yeah.
But like, you're like, oh, man, I'm gonna get better at something.
Yeah.
That's where it's at. So there's been like this development over time, right?
Oh,
Like,
of course, man. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, even
Or what's been some influences for you?
influences.
Yeah, like as
I
through
mean,
your
early
development.
on, like I kind of fell in love with like Miles Davis, John Coltrane, some of the biggest, really the biggest, kind of the biggest names in jazz.
Yeah,
Man, and in high school, I was like, man, I was buying just a bunch of jazz records,
yeah,
tons and tons of jazz records, like CDs, going to
yeah,
Hastings,
yeah.
I
Back
was
in,
like buying it up,
they had a
man.
huge fucking collection
Yeah,
of everything,
huge,
dude.
huge, man. And I would like look up recommendations online of what to get. All these classic jazz records. I just kept buying this stuff. I had a huge and then I had a couple of friends in Jeff City that I was playing jazz with as well. And Andrew Van Hoos and my friend Brian Stever, who's a drummer. Actually, Brian and I just played in Omaha last night, and we were all into it too. So we were like sharing records,
Yeah,
and like we kind of like we
it's a thing. It's like
yeah,
trading cards.
kind of man.
Like
No,
you
for
know,
real. You have this one? Okay, I'll give you this one.
yeah, you're trading music.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so then like I was like way into it, and then I got a conservatory, and I was at UMKC. The director of the jazz program, Bobby Watson. He's like he's just retiring now, but he's a legend in the jazz world. So he's a big influence on me. And then my trumpet professor, like classical trumpet, like not jazz, like classical.
yeah.
Keith
Very
Benjamin.
structured.
Yeah, it's a different whole mentality, but also really affected me.
Yeah,
The discipline and the pedagogy behind that kind of stuff is way different than jazz.
yeah,
And then it's like I kind of came back to my roots in the sense that because I was so into jazz, but like towards the end of conservatory, I was like, man, I love jazz, but I like neglected all the other music that I love and I've loved before, like hip hop or whatever,
yeah,
pop and whatever. So like, it was funny because I was like going back and listening to all the stuff I used to love and rediscovering new stuff that I kind of missed out on, and like
you hear it with a different ear.
yeah, a totally different ear, and it's like, man, at this point I'm listening to more other music than I listen to jazz. Like after that period of jazz, like I kind of like it wasn't my main listening thing anymore.
Right.
And at that point, also, I started doing other stuff, like especially in Kansas City. Like I have a group here. It's called the Buzz, and we're like a 9-10 piece group with like 3 singers and 2 MCs.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, like we're just I was doing all kinds. We were doing and then we also like did like the music of Trap Called Quest. We were doing like these tribute shows.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Like Mos Def and like Common, like
very hip hop based.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then we started doing like Michael Jackson shows and stuff because I always loved MJ.
Oh, dude, I didn't realize how much of culture he actually influenced. I went back, I listened to his entire catalog.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, holy shit. So many artists have sampled him. So many trends have been set by him.
Of course.
People do tons of remakes of his songs. I'm like, that's his song? Like,
Yep.
he really influenced culture.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely want to play his music.
And I was, I just remember like he was my first favorite artist,
Yeah.
And I was kind of came back to it. I was like, why not? Like
everything comes full circle.
Yeah,
full
yeah,
circle.
Yeah. And so, we did that. And I got into production a little bit, and so my influences, you're asking my influences, so my influences kind of came back to like, oh yeah, what was also influenced before I was doing music? It was already kind of here, this stuff here too. So all that informs my music.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would imagine that, finding inspiration in areas like outside of your genre is probably one of the best forms of inspiration because it's so different than what's being done in the space, and then you can draw from these different. Oh, I like that sound. Oh, I really like that. Those bars right there. It's like, how can I work that into what I'm doing, or maybe it just creates a thought, right, and then that grows into something else.
Totally.
Yeah, creativity fascinates me immensely. Dude.
Yeah, man.
Just the whole working of the brain. You ever like study the brain or anything, or look into anything in flow state?
I study. I mean, like I like to read a lot.
Right.
So I've read like lately this past year. I've read like I've been reading. I was reading. I've read the Undoing Project by Michael Lewis. He's the one who did Sports Ball.
I don't know. I don't know if I
Or
heard that.
Moneyball rather.
Oh,
Sorry,
Moneyball.
Moneyball.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, where he talks about these Israeli like basically psychologists
Yeah.
who study the brain and decision making and all that.
Yeah.
And Moneyball is about like analytics in sports, right?
Right. Yeah,
Like,
because he developed a whole plan or a whole like algorithm as far as like how they should recruit people.
Yeah, exactly. And
Right.
it's like less based on like intuition, ideas of intuition and feelings, and more based on like analyzing and getting to the facts and using actual statistics and probability,
Right.
instead of just using like what you kind of think.
Right. Like a rational logic.
Yeah, because
compared to
we can be very fallible in our decisions.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but that kind of thinking extends beyond obviously sports.
Oh yeah.
And so I was getting into that. Also, like got into a lot of neuroscience books earlier in the year.
Yeah.
So like the brain is fascinating, man. I love it.
Dude, yeah, I read a lot of, I split time between, I listen to a lot of podcasts, not as many as I used to. I found like once you start doing something, then it's hard to actually consume it. I don't know if you ever found that, but it's like once I started really I fought for a really long time. When I was fighting, I didn't really watch a lot of fighting. Like I'm busy doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not. So it's like you only have so much time that you can consume when you're creating, but you still have to consume to create because you still need to be growing and learning and getting. I feel like finding inspiration and just pulling from all these different sources. But so yeah, I'll like listen to podcasts or I like do Audible books. But I always I'm always reading like a book too, kind of in conjunction.
Yeah.
And I've definitely went down the rabbit hole of like sociology and like. Or it's like in psychology and fucking. There's a great book called Tribes by Sebastian Junger.
Okay.
I listened to it. It was like a 3-hour listen. It was a quick listen. I imagine it's a short read, but it was really just talking about like the human nature of people and how we are very like tribal people. It's a fucking great book.
I've been actually thinking about that a lot in the past year too.
We really are, man. Yeah. Like fucking once you get to a certain point in society and then you almost just become disconnected when it gets too big.
Yeah.
And even when it gets to a certain size, you find that people like to congregate together and we like to be in these tribes. Yeah. And it's very important really for I feel growth and to have that connection. Like one of the best things you can have is a connection with another human.
Right.
And it's so natural and innate. I'm
curious in that book does he go further into why why the tribalism exists, why wouldn't we in tribes? He talks
some about that. So when you look at like the human race from like an ancestral point and you kind of go back to like when we started, there's a lot of things that are built into our DNA that we found that have a purpose, and it takes, dude, the way we're living today is so new. You know what I mean? Like it's probably been the last 150 years that we're living in the society that we are today with, just think of where technology has come, and we have so many people living in such a small populated area, but we're more disconnected. But if you go back to like the beginning, like we were in small tribes, and I think it's maybe like Dunbar's number where it's like 150 people that you can really know and have connection with. And then once you get past that, it just becomes too big. So there's just this innate sense in us to where we operate better in these small communal like tribes. You know what I mean? And then we've kind of like gotten to this place to where we're ignoring that. So I don't know if the why is just that I don't know like what biologically makes us that way, but there's definitely something innate in us because we've lived like that for so long. And I mean, but you see it manifesting in health consequences when people are alone and they are like isolated. Yeah. Like you can really see that in real world examples. So we definitely need each other. I'm not sure if I really understand the exact why. Yeah, but he gives all these great examples of how, for example, like the bombing of the Twin Towers, like there was more community in New York during that time than there probably ever has been or ever will be. And people are brought together by struggle and hard times.
Yeah.
And that was a big theme of the book, how we really come together and grow as a people. And even though it's fucking crazy to think about, like, nobody wants chaos and struggle and all
Yeah.
that, but people really look back on those times, and those are some of the best memories, and that's what brings people together
It's interesting because
sometimes.
I think I have kind of like a cynical view on it. You know,
Yeah,
like I don't know, like I feel like will people will do what needs to happen when they're directly affected by it.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like, well, why didn't we come together before?
that's a great question.
You know what
Why
I
didn't
mean?
we?
Like, and that's one of the things that kind of gets me down a little bit. I'm like, man, like we as a society and could really advance so much further if we really all decided to work together.
We really could.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
it always takes something that like directly affects us in a negative way to actually do something about it. You know, even like the ecological crisis and stuff. Like,
yeah,
honestly, I think it's gonna be hard to find people to do anything about it until like they're like, well, actually half my city's flooded now. It's gone. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that might be the point where they. I mean, that.
Dude, people like to
Yeah.
put their head in the sand
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not do anything until
Yeah.
it
And
comes to their front door.
exactly. And I can't get down about that sometimes. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah.
man, I do too. I don't know if are we just the more connected we are, in the like the cybernetic world, are we
Yeah.
becoming less connected in this physical world? Which I mean, we're kind of seeing that. And then I really like to think that most people are good natured.
Yeah.
I really do because I really just believe in like the power of like positivity and love.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I am a realist, and I understand that there's a balance to this energy.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And there are some hard people in the world and some evil people in the world,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
just that energy is there.
Right.
And
Yeah, I'm not saying like, for instance, I'm not saying like it's coming from a negative place that they like. It's not like they don't care about the world. It's just
right,
it's just the way you live your life. You get bogged down in the things that are like in your vicinity and what are around you,
yeah, yeah,
and what are it's what, in the same that's like a physical geographical thing,
yeah,
but also if you think about it from like a metaphysical like a time perspective, like people for instance who don't like invest in their future.
yeah,
It's because like they're only worried about their immediate future.
yeah. They have
You know what I
like
mean?
they don't have any long term thinking.
Yeah, they're more. So it's always easier in general to be you prioritize the things that are nearest to you
Yeah,
in a sense. You know what I mean?
yeah. We have a tendency to do that. Well, I feel like we're very much so like a global society
Yeah,
in this day and age,
yeah,
and everybody can see the injustice and everybody can see what we need to do. But like to your point, like nobody's doing anything,
yeah,
and I'm I don't like to be like the conspiracy theory guy or anything like
mm,
that. But if you look at just public policy and if you look at the political space, you have some very powerful people, and this is kind of like that balance and energy is where you have some really great people. There is greed is very real,
yeah,
you know what I mean,
for
and
sure.
it's a very real human emotion. And sometimes, dude, you get some very powerful people and they have that greed and they just have this drive to keep what they have
Yep,
going even at the cost of everybody else. And
of course,
I
man.
feel like you see that on a grand scale. And then is it just like people don't see hope? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like, well, what can I do?
yeah,
Well, it's not affecting me, so I'm just gonna keep doing my thing because I can't do anything. It's like we have legal bribery, and we just call it what the fuck do we call it? Damn, the word is escaping me. What do we call it, Alan? What is it when you? I mean, you can give
What,
donations,
lobbying?
lobbying. Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah,
lobbyists.
sure,
Yeah,
of
we have
course.
lobbying.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
you can give donations. We have lobbyists.
yeah,
Like that's legal
yeah,
bribery. Like that's just what we just put this name on it and we
yeah,
call it.
sure,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So we have people with a lot of money like
yeah.
pushing their
Money,
interest.
exactly. The money is influencing the policy making, which is just.
Yeah,
I mean, it's it's superseding the human
the
life
greater good.
and the greater good.
Yeah. It's like at what
Uh,
cost, dude? I
yeah,
also ask myself at what cost.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
It blows me away. But we are seeing a revolution in the sense of people are connected and things do come to light.
yeah,
And a lot of these people can't hide that shit anymore.
Right.
I think about that in the cannabis space.
Mm.
You were seeing a lot of laws changing
Yeah. So.
all over the world.
Yeah.
But there was this period of time to where it was totally cool, totally acceptable. And then, we had alcohol prohibition. And then we quit that ended. So they went to something else. They went to cannabis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For various reasons, with race, because of blacks and Mexicans. They wanted to, they call it marijuana because that's a Mexican term, and if you smoke it, then that's what the colored smoke, and they act crazy, and then they're gonna have sex with all the white women, and then there's all these political and money influences. With you have William Randolph Hearst, who is a very wealthy entrepreneur, and he had a lot of money in timber, and there was a new device called the decorticator, which made it easier to process hemp. Because hemp is an amazing fiber. You know what I mean? It doesn't. And when we're talking about the hemp plant, there's actually little to no THC in that. It's like the male version of the plant. This decorticator would have cost him millions of dollars because he had all this investment in timber and he had a newspaper. So they started this whole political propaganda, right? You have Reefer Madness, and then he's in conjunction with Harry Anslinger. So you have the federal government and law enforcement.
Right.
So it's just all of these things kind of in play to feed greed and self-interest when you're just demonizing a part of nature in this plant.
Absolutely.
And it's a medicine for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And over the years they've said that, hey man, we don't have enough evidence, we need more research. But dude, I read this book, it's a great book called Smoke Signals, and it talks pretty much the whole history of cannabis, politically, from society standpoint, socially, all these different perspectives on it. And it talks about all of these different reports and studies that were done from all these different organizations dating back to the late 1800s from all over the world, and they all came to the same conclusion that cannabis is safe and it is a medicine and it has medicinal value. But every time it gets ignored and swept under the rug, and then you just have power. And we're at this stage of the game, America is a very powerful country, right? We have a lot of sway and a lot of influence. People bend to the will of the U.S.
Yeah.
And dude, it's
just true.
Yeah, but again, that was something that is not in the greater good of the people. How many people have went to jail for this, or how many people have been denied medicine, they're seriously ill? You know what I mean? So it really blows me away. I just went on a huge rant.
It's symptomatic of what we're talking about. It's true.
Yeah, dude, you see it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does any of that? You ever go into play and you're just you're feeling a certain way, and then it's just really expressed through your music. You're just fuck man, I'm super frustrated, or you just take it out on your music.
It's always, but it's the funny thing about that though. For sure, sometimes I can't whatever I'm feeling won't change.
Yeah.
But in general, because I love playing music, it always puts me in a better place. Anyways,
that's
you know
your
what I
happy
mean?
Place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost the time to kind of get away from the world in a sense.
Okay.
All of a sudden here's the music, and as a listener, ideally that's what they're going to get from it too.
Yeah.
'Cause, they're gonna forget about their crazy week they had, or their whatever, they might have lost a loved one or something.
Yeah.
And so they're there in that moment, and it's for them to feel something.
Yeah.
And just whatever they feel it. But of course, man, I'm human. And it's not like it's some magical thing where everything just disappears.
Right.
In reality. So yeah, if sometimes I'm in a certain headspace, that's gonna come through in the music as well.
Yeah. Do you ever find it meditative? I feel like meditation is really the art of just being present.
Yeah.
And for me, a lot of times, dude, I do jujitsu, and that's a very moving, meditative thing for me. I've been doing it for a decade now, and I don't really think a lot whenever I do it. I just do now.
Yeah.
And dude, it just whatever. I could have the worst day going on, but I start doing jujitsu and it all melts away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And it's just being in the present, right? Is that the same thing for you?
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
In performance, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. You have to be in the moment, especially when I was talking about improvisation. It's in the moment,
right?
You can't be thinking too much about it in a sense. You can't be thinking, oh, what did I just do? Was that cool? Was that good? Once you start thinking that, you're out of the moment.
Yeah, you are. You're judging it.
Yeah.
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 What was I gonna ask you? I just asked you. the fuck did I just? My mind sometimes, Herman. I smoke cannabis, and this is probably why. Although it's good for your brain. Short-term memory, though. Oh man, I had another great question for you.
Along the same lines?
It was along the same lines. What the hell did I just ask? He's not listening.
No, in the moment.
Yeah, oh, I know I was gonna ask you. Sorry, dude. Do you meditate, or do you have a practice to where you just, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you have like a meditation practice or anything like that, or is that anything you've ever looked into?
I don't. There were times in my life where I did, like, for a period, like a short period. I would do some meditations, like nothing like super structured, just stuff I'd find online or whatever.
Okay, like no like breath work or anything, like maybe sit with yourself.
I did do breath work, but that was more trumpet focused, but it became meditative too.
Right.
In a sense.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of not even just being away from the horn and working on breathing in time, breathing da da da, and also there's a short period for a couple of years where I took voice lessons.
Oh yeah.
And my voice teacher, she was also into yoga and stuff, so a lot of
it all plays together.
Yeah, the breathing is all, yoga is all breathing in a sense,
Right. So you were being taught breath work from one perspective, but there's all these other benefits, right? You probably just weren't even aware of it at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do a lot of studying with breath work, and it's interesting because my son is in 6th grade, dude. It blows me away. And so last year he played violin in 5th grade in the orchestra, and then this year he started trumpet. And like I was like, look, dude, I told him I'm like, bro, like I'm sitting down with this guy, like he's I told my son, I try to like motivate his ass, like let him know, like, look, dude, I've seen firsthand, like literally, like somebody in middle school killing it and just develop their passion. And I try to give him the perspective like we didn't get, that, dude, you can pursue this. Like you can do whatever it is that you want to do for real. Yeah. Like you can do it, and it's a real thing. And I tell him, like, dude, you got to practice all the time. Like this is what you have to, if you want to do it, you need to do it. Yeah. Like I'm not going to try to force on him, but he's learning breath work right now and breath control, and he's just doing all that basic stuff, and I'm talking to him about breath work. And when you're the parent, they kind of feel like you don't know anything.
That's true.
So I'll start telling him about stuff. He's like, oh, that's what my teacher said, that's what I'm like, bro, like this is what I do. Like, I'm a health professional.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, dude. So he's like learning all of this stuff right now, and I'm just like, yeah, man. So I realized in that moment, like, there's a lot of crossover, like it all plays into each other. It's pretty cool.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Oh, dude. What time is it? I want to be respectful of your time. How long have we been going? Okay, cool. So, what? 12:21. Yeah, so we've been going for a little bit. Dude, this has been fantastic, Herman.
Awesome.
I'm so glad we were able to catch up, man.
Dude, yeah, man.
I really believed, and I still will, like, I didn't travel a lot growing up. Yeah. And I reached a certain point a couple years ago. I was like, dude, there's no reason not to make it happen. Yeah. To travel more. I was like, well, so when we didn't connect last time, I'm like, well, shit, I'm just going to have to go to Paris to sit down with this dude.
Yeah, man.
So next time, we'll do it in Paris.
For sure.
Yeah, that'll be where it's at, dude.
You got to come over, man.
Dude, I can only imagine. It's going to be fucking great.
Yeah.
So, but I want to turn the table over to you, man. Like, how can folks check out your music? If there's anything you want to plug and promo, dude, like, the floor is yours, man.
I mean, okay, so easiest thing, website, hermonmehari.com. HermonMehari. I have my Instagram handle, KC Trumpeter, and I'm on Facebook as well. I generally on my website I'll have my shows around the world kind of posted.
Yeah.
I'm mostly in Europe, but I come to States a couple times a year now. And then I have the recordings coming out and stuff, So, that's the easiest thing.
They can follow you, keep up, see what's going on. Yeah. I'll put this in the show notes so they can see it. But, rad, dude. Hey, thanks again, brother.
Man, thank you, Adam.
All right, everybody. Until next time.
Yep.